Nice to be here once again for another edition. My name is E.K. Benson Jr. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to speak, to listen to us, trying to impart important conversations about Africa to you and the rest of the continent. We're happy to be here. We're going to take a break in a minute and we'll be right back. So welcome back from the break. And today we have in our studios, well, actually we have in Mombasa on Zoom, Caroline Wanjiku. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Wanjiku.
Wanjiku. What does Wanjiku mean?
Well, in my culture, the tribe is divided into groupings which are given African female names. So my clan belongs to the Agashiko clan. So the name Wanjiku is actually passed on from my great-great-great-grandparents and grandmother. My grandmother was Wanjiku. I am Wanjiku. All my cousins on my paternal side are Wanjiku. And that's how the name carries on. So we believe that, yes, we came from, God started creation through Mumbi, the mother of our nation, our tribe, and her husband. And to us, Mount Kenya is sacred. We call it Kirinyaga, which is, when the elders go and pray, they go and pray at a sacred tree, the Muvumo tree. So it's a whole tapestry around who we are and where we come from, and we identify ourselves with the names that our forefathers gave to their 9 daughters, and one of them is Wanjiku.
Wow, that's beautiful. My shoes are currently on some red carpet. I think I should get some more red carpet to line that be away. My God, I'm speaking to royalty. Anyway, nice to meet you finally, Caroline, and
Yes.
have you on the show today.
Great to be here.
To be talking about the blue economy. 25th July, just a few days ago, was Day of the Oceans and Seas, African Day of the Oceans.
African Day.
African Day of the Oceans and Sea. So
Correct.
this is an opportunity to have a conversation about the blue economy. What does it mean to you, me, everybody, every African? Why is it important?
Well, it is
But before you do that,
yes.
Before you do that, kindly tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh.
Apart from your royalty status. So, so that we can celebrate the style.
Benza, we shall discuss that after the show.
I
think you should know that we claim you, Benza Jr., as an East African. You've been in Addis Ababa, you've been in Nairobi. So we
you're exposing me.
Please tell your Ghanaians that they don't own you 100%, So
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So thank you for allowing me the opportunity. I have a passion for the blue economy. I think growing up, I remember going to school in my early days in Tanga, Tanzania. My father used to work for the East African Harbors and Railways Corporation. We were one East African community then, and then the countries went into different directions. And so we moved to Mombasa, which is my hometown now. And currently I work for KCB Bank Group for the Kenya operation. And I had a business development, primarily emerging markets and the blue economy. And the reason why I have passion about the blue economy is because still, for us to be able to trade with each other and to make full use of Agenda, find a way of making Agenda 2063 work for us, is to make sure that our waterways, our inlets, our lakes, our rivers, our oceans are part of that economic development. Briefly, KCB Bank is the largest regional bank in this part of Africa. The asset base, it's about 977 billion shillings worth. We should be crossing the trillion shilling mark, at the end of this year.
Wow.
Branch network is very wide.
If I may interrupt, why would the bank with that asset size be so interested in the blue economy?
We must, because we have looked at and worked on the land mass for so long. We've forgotten that still 80% of all goods and services in the world are transported via our waters. And other countries and regions have taken advantage of that. And it's only now that people are really thinking about their blue spaces. What is Africa's maritime domain, and why should we be interested in it? What is the SEMSA all about, the Combined Economic Maritime Zone? We in Kenya are developing our own sort of special economic zone here in Mombasa, Dongo Kundu. We're opening up our ports in Lamu and Liwatoni and Shimoni. Tanzania, which is next door, has their own maritime agenda. Recently, the two presidents met and decided, Shimoni port is important. It's an important fishing port. Why don't we have cooling facilities so that fish can be processed and sold or exported? Because we need the blue dollar or the blue cedi or the blue shilling. If we don't think about that space, it means somebody else is trading with the resources in that space. And about 2-3 years ago, November of 2018, we held a sustainable economic blue conference in Nairobi, Kenya. And the whole world, descended in Nairobi. And we said, this is what we want to do with our blue space. And since between then and now, a number of state authorities have come into play, and they've established, security, policing on the water, which we didn't have before. They've established a strategy through the county governments that sit on the coastal areas of Kenyan space, so that, when we offer courses for people to study maritime engineering or maritime economics, or just to be able to work as seafarers on board ships. Ships need everything from stewards to captains to oilsmen to engineers, just about every profession that you have on land. But when you think about it, some of the terms that we actually use on land have been derived over the centuries from the blue space. So I think this is the right time to engage Africa. The African Free Continental Trade Area is, I think, something that yourself and your colleagues should be proud of, because of the Agenda 2063 goals or priority items, this is one of the first that has been implemented. I'm looking forward to just not holding an economic, a passport for East Africa, but a passport for Africa. Where I sit, I interact a lot with the learning institutions, with government entities, with agencies or associations on the private sector side. We make boats and crafts and ferries for other countries. So if Uganda is ordering a ferry to be used in Lake Victoria, and it is being crafted here in Mombasa, and it handed over to UNRWA, which is the Uganda National Roads Authority, that is something that should be emulated and possibly, it should be something which should be, if we had a billboard or a tracker somewhere of what is available in Africa in the blue space, and can we, promote these companies, not just the governments, because governments can only do so much. In the places that we sit, I sit in KCB Bank, and if I say we have a branch network of 355 branches across East Africa, from South Sudan all the way down to Burundi, and hopefully maybe the DRC one day, should I not be interested in the port city of Kigoma? If I look at the Horn of Africa, I should be interested in what Djibouti is doing. And so even in places where we think there's no structure, like Somalia has the Sixth University of Mogadishu. They actually have maritime courses even at secondary school level. So they're ahead of us, and we imagine that because our economy is well documented, well presented, that there's still lessons to learn from each other. So that is my belief that, it's not, as Africans, we have answers to everything if we just share. In a nutshell, I think that just about covers it.
Fantastic, Caroline. I like that powerful insight. And I like the fact that it's actually all African. To think that East Africa has that capacity to be able to, through a bank, encourage synergies on the blue economy. That's incredible. How far is KCBB Bank willing to go? Is it willing to go possibly to West Africa, to Southern Africa with this expertise?
Ideally, we want to be an African bank, and we want to be able to speak as, with the African voice. Because the bank it has a history, 120 years plus is a lot of time. So when we hear about international banks, and we know we have really, well-developed banks also on the western coast of Africa, we see them operate again in the East African space as well. I think we can form synergy so that anything that happens on the western side of Africa, or even in the eastern side of Africa, if we think that maybe we should tap into somebody from, EcoBank or somewhere else that has expertise in this area, I don't see why we can't do a syndication. And we don't have to wait for 2063 to say, because the commodities exchange has not been developed, we can't trade, say, cedi for shilling or that kind of thing. I think it's just looking at the opportunities that are coming up and seeing how can we leverage to do the bit that we can right now, instead of waiting for the perfect thing to happen. There are very many plans for each of the RECs and the nations and the communities, or the integrated communities, and there must be a way in which we leverage on what is the commonality. We're not going to do a railway across the continent tomorrow, but Grand Ingadan is happening, and free trade continental area is being implemented. The passport hopefully will graduate to the African space, not just East and West and South. Where there's need in the continent, in Mozambique right now, people should be lending a hand and saying, hey, I think if this is resolved, we can help them do this. The same thing that we did in South Sudan. KCB is in South Sudan because it wasn't exactly the perfect environment, but we could lend a hand and give our expertise and say, hey, we can help you establish, bring in the central bank and get that on the ground so that money can start moving. Without money moving across our borders and our spaces, then we really can't do very much in terms of all the wonderful things that you want to do in the pillars that we've decided to work on, and the SDGs that we've chosen that we need to work on. So don't wait for perfection. Let's just do what we can do now.
As we wait to do what we can do, I think what the African Continental Free Trade Area is teaching us is the ability to do a lot of cross-border collaboration.
Great.
And also to create further synergies, as you rightly said. I'm just really blown away by the vision of the bank, because oftentimes banks are always talking about the profit motive, and obviously there's a lot of profits that will come from the blue economy if we get it right, but to be thinking that far, the blue economy is something that involves communities, ordinary people, as well as, and there's a value chain that goes all the way up to the top and down, if you really think about it, in a way that general banking does not always do. So I want to find out a little bit about not necessarily what KCB seeks to do with its portfolio, but what potential is it seeking to capitalize on now that we have AFTA, now that we have the regional economic communities, and we are trying to strengthen them. We have an East Africa community. Just a few days ago, I realized that they are seeking to, they've just adopted the tourism strategy at the East Africa community. How, for example, can you maximize the potential in tourism with the blue economy?
Yeah, so when you're looking
at how will that portend for other regions on as well to learn the best practice?
So let me just share the East African example from a Kenyan perspective. So we have tourists now, international tourists and local tourists. And when we were hit by COVID, you know, that industry really relied heavily on local tourists and regional tourists. And on the blue space, we have marine parks, beautiful, you know, ocean spaces and white sandy beaches. And what has happened is that when we are putting up ports, for instance, and you interfere with some of or the people who operate in those spaces, we have boats that take tourists to all these marine parks out there, and we have quite a number from the north to the south coast. We expect that we're expected to find ways in which that industry is sustained, even when there's challenges like COVID and what have you. How do we do that? The whole initiative behind the tourism endeavor is such that, you know, you continue to sustain livelihoods because there are people who depend on tourism in general to keep their families going. So tourism and fishing are tied together very closely because some of the crafts that are used during high seasons, they ferry tourists to these marine parks. During fishing season, because fishing also has seasons, they go out and they fish. And when the Lamu port, before it was launched, and in the course of its development, the country had to take into consideration a package to alleviate or to compensate the loss of a fishing area or, you know, tourism for that space which the port itself is going to occupy at Kilalana. And that package has been rolled out, and it's included in this financial year for the government, so that the people who then use those vessels for their businesses are able to then have a pot of money which they're going to use, for which the bank then sets up a fund. If you have just a basic dhow, and I'm talking about the fisher folk with their simple vessels, but that doesn't have a motor, they cannot go out into the deep beyond a certain point because they don't have the equipment to do that. So the whole idea of setting up this fund is so that they can improve, number one, their vessels. They can certify these vessels with the Kenya Maritime Authority. Our authority came into being about 10 or so years ago, and so regulation is now in place. And once that happens, then that vessel can be insured. So whether it's going to be used to ferry tourists or whether it's going to be used during the fishing season to fish, they have compensation if anything should happen to that vessel. I can finance them to purchase that that motor itself, to drive that vessel into a place where they can actually get a good harvest out of the water. And
something like
that
blue insurance.
Yes, so blue insurance. So if you've taken that vessel that just used to go fly maybe 2 miles out, and now it can go up to 20 miles out into the Kenyan blue space. Fish, get much better harvest, come back, store it, package it and sell it, or sell on a daily basis. The same vessel or a vessel that is registered as a tourism, as a tour boat, can go into better spaces where people can actually do diving and not just viewing the fish around the reef. So people are going further out. As a bank, we're thinking of our products and thinking, okay, so we can actually, this vessel is insured. I can actually take this motor and give them asset-based financing, and they can pay it off in 6 months or a year, but they're getting a higher income. So you're removing people out of the poverty bracket and taking them one step up. So in a generation of a father, grandfather, father, and son, the kids will go to school, will come back and say, why can't we have a fleet? If my father was able to get now a motor to drive the vessel out and get a better harvest, make more money, why can't we get more than one vessel? And then now look at that as a business, which of course the bank is then going to say, okay, so now we've created this a subset of clientele, so to speak. We have units in Kenya called beach management units. And what the fishermen do or the fisher folk do is that they gather themselves into cooperatives. The soccer movement in Kenya has been there ever since independence. And so it's a very common concept. And it helps because you don't have to, go and discuss this with a financial institution as an individual. You use your beach management unit as a soccer group, you pool your funds together and you say, we want to, not just the machinery, we actually want new boats, fiberglass, not a wood, because then you don't have to cut down the mangroves, which are now breeding grounds for our crustaceans, and those make much more dollar than the fish itself. So it's a whole ecosystem and understanding of what happens, to the fisher folk community and how can we step in with the county governments, with the beach management units, the government agencies to help from the bottom of the pyramid and then work our way up to financing, hopefully one day, the VLCCs, if they can dock at Lamu Port and have transshipment, and then the ships take them to, wherever they're going, Berbera, Tanzania. That has happened at Lamu. Can we then copy paste and use this model somewhere else on the continent? So it's just about getting people out of, you don't have to just fish at the shoreline using mosquito nets. Don't take the little baby fish and the eggs out of the ocean. They need to grow and give you a better harvest. Go out into the deep and harvest where the fish has gotten to a certain size, you get better dollar return on them, and then your vessel is in a better place and can be used to get you facilities from a bank like this to be able to grow your business, so to speak.
I like the point you made about the whole ecosystem, and you mentioned Lamu Port. I'd like to take the opportunity to ask you about what happened about almost 2 months ago when Uhuru Kenyatta, Kenyan president, launched the Lamu Port.
Yes.
As part of the whole LAPSET project.
Correct.
You being a Mombasa and the Kenyan, you can tell us, for audiences who may not know the significance of LAPSET, the extent to which it affects Ethiopia, South Sudan, and what that portends for the continent.
Oh my goodness, that is a dream which I think will be fulfilled by the generations to come. But it has started off. At the very least, it has started off. The whole idea behind LAPSET, actually the name LAPSET comes from Lamu Port. The SS is for South Sudan and the ET is for Ethiopia. So a couple of years ago, the three presidents got together and they signed off and they said, we want to create a port here in Lamu. And this corridor is going to be called LAPSET because it will be used for between three countries, Kenya, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. And this port is going, number one, to help us to ease pressure of the Mombasa port. It will be able to take very large VLCCs, which cannot enter. The natural depth of Kilalana is much deeper than the Mombasa harbor or the Kilindini harbor. And ideally, a transshipment hub eventually maybe should be a special economic zone like Dubai and all that, so that all the countries around that space are able then to take advantage of having a place where they don't have to all go to the Mombasa, to the port in Harbour in Mombasa, to be able to open up these areas that were, we could say, didn't have any large economic infrastructure for people to actually say, "Hi, I think I want to invest money in this corridor because then I can open up housing projects, or I can put up a school or a hotel because I know that corridor is going to be." So the idea, that's the first phase. The Lapsset corridor itself is supposed to have an oil pipeline, a railway pipeline, a railway line, an oil refinery. The airport at Lamu is already there. There's a whole lot of attendant infrastructure which is supposed to help that corridor come to life, so to speak. But the road network is already in place. And so for transshipment to happen, it doesn't mean that the cargo that is now being offloaded in Lamu is supposed to come into Kenya. It's a transshipment hub. And so therefore you can have ship-to-ship transshipment. So when the VLCCs or the large container cargo ships come in, they can offload their cargo. It goes up to smaller ships, and then that's transshipment, or transshipment into Ethiopia or South Sudan or the hinterland. The Lapsset corridor is actually supposed to go all the way across until Yaoundé. Sorry, Benza.
Central Africa.
Yaoundé is in Cameroon.
Yes.
If we can manage to have a road and rail and bridge network across from east to west, and one day have one from north to south, I cannot stress how mind-boggling that would be in terms of a shared and grand infrastructure across both ends of the African continent. It means people can move, goods can move. We are then encouraged to think about our customs and revenue authorities and getting them to centralize or agree on, if it's made in Africa, sans tax, if it's originating from west and it comes to east, we sell it accordingly. If it comes from outside of Africa, that's a different story. And that's how the European markets have defended themselves. That's how they have grown their dairy industries and their shipping industries. And I think it's about time for us to wake up and lend support where we see lapsets of Africa coming to life. So
fantastic. Yeah. So it's good to know that Lapset is also actually a project also of the African Union, the FIDA program. We just have a few minutes, sadly, yes. But this is a conversation we can revisit. Yes. Closing words, just give us a powerful message to the youth, to the women, to everyone out there who sees the potential of the blue economy and how they contribute to it in the context of Agenda 2063.
Okay. Number one, look to your governments, because there is a deliberate and a focused effort to get the youth of the African continent to study everything and anything maritime. We need expertise. So if these universities and colleges and programs are available, at least I know that they are in Tanzania, Somalia, and Kenya, come into that space. We even have a sponsorship through the Higher Learning Education Board for some of these courses. We have employment opportunities because we cannot put enough African youth on board ships, even just for basic stewarding services. And the more we expose our youth to these opportunities, the better we are off as a continent, because we need the experience and we need to earn that currency. Support your governments or your local, regional or county or even just municipalities in the drive, let's say for a cleaner, greener ocean. Participate in those, because somebody somewhere will sit up and notice and actually avail a pot and say, you know what, because you've made this place better and cleaner and greener, the beach, or this particular project, this water energy project, we are looking for opportunities as financiers where we can deploy some of this money. And it's not just Africa, it's the world sitting up and paying attention. So my closing remarks would be just look, there's a lot of information out there online. Start with Agenda 2063. Look at what we want to do as Africans. And from there, you'll find groups of people and networks that will open up these opportunities to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And I guess my parting words would be to the Ghanaian youth that any Ghanaian youth who wants to go to Kenya should come and see you for some funds to be able to use for building their maritime opportunities, right?
By all means, I try to share what opportunities there are, even in employment, what employment opportunities are opening up on our WhatsApp. I don't think that's enough. If all of us as Africans could look out and share, there are many African youth who need these jobs. So please share as much as possible. We're actually envious of Ghana. You now have e-cedi and we don't have e-shilling. So development happens at different places everywhere across the continent. And this is a good platform to share some of those lessons. So thank you.
Caroline Wenji, live from Mombasa, live from Accra. Thank you very much for making of your busy schedule to speak with us. We hope to have you on another day to further expand on different aspects of the blue economy. So thank you once, and we hope that you'll be revisiting your copy of Agenda 2063 as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vincent. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Caroline. And thank you to all those who made time to follow us on Zoom and otherwise. We hope to be speaking to you next time on another topic, but the blue economy is definitely not going to go away. We want to encourage all of you to continue the conversation on the blue economy, blue food, up until the point we get a blue African that is not an alien.
Blue Africa.
Have a great day. We speak to you next time. Asante sana.